I'd like to tell you a story about a sales call I had, and this was someone who was referred to me to join Strategic Coach, and very good referral. You know, the person who referred this particular man into Strategic Coach was a long-time, very, very successful entrepreneur and a really great fan of Strategic Coach. So anyway, I got on the call. Let's say his name was Jack, and I said, "Hi, Jack. It's Dan. I'm really happy to talk to you." And he said that the person who referred to him, he said, "You know, he said such good things about you, but he didn't really tell me what the program was about. So could I just spend a few minutes learning how this program actually works?" And I said to him, "Well, before I tell you how it works, I'd like to ask you a question." And what the question is that if we were having this discussion and it was 3 years from today, and you were looking back over your experience over the past 3 years, both personally and professionally, what has to happen for you to be happy with your progress? Okay. And then I didn't say anything more. I just let the question sit there. And this is another thing I want to tell you, that after you've asked your question, don't say anything, because one thing you know by the silence is that the question has really landed. And so after what seemed to me like a minute, it was probably only 10 or 15 seconds, he said, "Well, I'll tell you, Dan," he said, 3 years ago, I was a complete and total alcoholic. And he said, "It's taken everything that I could do over the last 3 years just to dig myself out of a hole. So I'm just at ground level now. And I have to tell you, this is what I want to do over the next 3 years. This is what has to happen in my life over the next 3 years." And he went on, and from the moment he started talking, I checked my watch. And when he got to the end of 23 minutes, so he talked for 23 minutes straight, I had just asked the question, let him think about it, and the person talked for 23 minutes. And when he was finished the 23 minutes, he says, "Well, Dan," he said, your program sounds really, really good. And he says, "So let me know how I sign up for it." So when I tell that story, it always gets a big laugh at the end. And, you know, people say, "Well, you didn't tell him anything about the program." And I said, "Well, did I tell him anything about the program?" And, you know, and some people twig to what's happened right away, and they said, "Well, yeah, you did tell him. You told him that the program was going to be about him and not about you." And I said, "Yes," and that's exactly what most people want to know about buying anything. Is this whole experience going to be about you, the salesperson, or is it going to be about me, the customer? And by keeping my mouth shut for 23 minutes, I absolutely convinced him that the whole purpose and the focus of the Strategic Coach program was really going to be about him and the things that were most important in his life. And there were other things that happened in this discussion that I had with this person. And first of all, it established the fact that the number one thing that we buy when we involve ourselves in any kind of transaction in the marketplace, the first thing that we actually buy is a relationship. Before we buy a product or a service or an experience, the first thing that we actually buy is a relationship. And what he was doing when he got on the line with me, from the moment I started talking, and I didn't talk very long because I just talked about a question, he was evaluating, is this a relationship that I'm actually going to buy? And by the fact that I just asked a very open-ended question, this question wasn't for my benefit, this question was actually for his benefit, he could make a very, very good judgment about whether he wanted to have a relationship, with me personally and whether he wanted to have a relationship with Strategic Coach. So based on the fact that this is really about relationship, we call this question the R-factor question. The R-factor question. And sometimes it's called the Dan Sullivan question because I'm the one who came up with the question. And but I recommend anybody who's in any line of work where you're selling something to actually use this question. And the reason why it works, besides the things that I've already told you about, namely that the other person is doing the talking, which is always good for a sale, and the other thing is that it gets them to buy a relationship, and the other thing is it tells them that they trust you. They would never, someone who had a experience with alcoholism and was really what he was telling me about was failure. You would never tell that to a stranger unless you trusted the person. So right off the bat, what the question establishes is that if they answer the question, you can be very sure that they trust you. And they made up their mind about that in the first very, very few seconds after the question was asked of them. So this is called the R-factor question. I'm just going to repeat it now. We have a book at Strategic Coach called the Dan Sullivan Question, which you can buy at strategiccoach.com. But the question is, if we were having this discussion and it was 3 years from today, and you were looking back over your experience over the past 3 years, both personally and professionally, what has to happen for you to be happy with your progress?